Yay. So you will indeed, there will be a recording and it will be posted on the August Camp website sometime in the next week or so. We look forward to seeing that. So anyway, hello and welcome to the August Camp 2022 Zoom info session for weeks 1 and 2. My name is Lenny Steinmetz, and I'm the chair of the August Camp Committee, which is a group of very dedicated volunteers that puts in many, many hours of behind the scenes work to make camp happen each year. You'll be hearing from some of those volunteers today as they tell you about plans for our camp in the North Cascades this summer and answer questions that you may have about what to expect and how to prepare. We're also happy to have some of our August Camp ambassadors here with us tonight. And our ambassadors are campers who've been to a number of camps in the past and have agreed to reach out to new campers to welcome them and answer questions they may have about camp. If you're a first-year camper, you will be receiving a personal email from one of them in the near future, if you haven't already, inviting you to communicate either by email, phone, or Zoom to discuss what to expect at camp, answer any additional questions you may have. If you're new to camp this year, we hope you'll take time to connect with them both before and during camp to find out more about what this August camp experience is all about. During today's session, we'd ask that everyone put themselves on mute so that we don't have sound bleed interfering with the presentations. If you have any questions during that time, please feel free to enter them into the chat, and we'll make sure to get them answered during this Zoom conference. And that chat info will be saved as part of the recording because people do ask to see it afterwards since there are a lot of good questions coming in. So without further ado, I would now like to turn things over to our camp director for weeks 1 and 2, Margot Lacey. Margot.
Thanks, Lenny. Let me get my sharing going.
I should mention, by the way, while she's getting her thing up, that Margot is not only the camp director for weeks 1 and 2, but she is also, as of October, will be the new chair of the August Camp Committee. So she's a busy lady.
All right. So just by way of introduction, after the first August camp in 1887, camp stayed in New England for over 70 years. And yes, according to some of the annals of the early August camps, the ladies did put up the lunch. But gradually, sites out west were explored, and since 2005, we've stayed out west, with the exception of last summer when we had the good fortune to be able to hold camp in Maine at the AMC's Little Lyford facility. But westward we go again in 2022, and we get to see a lot of amazing scenery. This is to whet your appetite here. Incredible alpine gardens. And I, for one, I've just loaded a flower ID app on my phone so that maybe I'll actually remember some of these plants. And some really great animals. And you. So right now I'm going to try to tell you everything you need to know about August Camp. And if you have any questions as we go along, as Lenny said, put them in the chat so we can answer them at the end. I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible, but really want to make sure that we can answer any questions that you have. So welcome to Concrete. This is probably one of the first views that you'll have of concrete is these towers, but you won't have that view for very long because camp is actually held east of the actual town of Concrete. And the vistas that you do get every day are much more like this lovely view. I think it's Lake Anne while you hike. And you also will get to see some huge trees, a lot of different kinds of water crossings, and some really beautiful snowy peaks above us as we hike. As I mentioned earlier, the wildflowers abound. I love the wildflowers, and that's probably the number one thing I have on my phone. So the August Camp site this year, it's such a stellar site. There's ample room for clusters of tents, and it's a really short walk right down to the river. Really great site. And if that's not enough, Cascadian Farms is right down the road, and they serve very good ice cream. So for those of you who were at Little Lyford last summer, sorry, no cushy cabins this year. You'll be sleeping in a tent. And I have to say, when I look at this picture, my tent never looks this good. Fortunately, you don't get any demerits if you don't make your bed every morning. And I will also say that my preference, for those of you who haven't slept on these cots before, I always like to bring a sleeping pad with me to make the bed a little bit more comfortable. And a limited number of items such as chairs and tarps are available. And there's a little rental that we put into the pot for the crew, but it's definitely on a first come, first served basis. So we don't guarantee that you're going to get a tarp when you get to camp or to make a floor system for your tent. The weather is usually mild, but nights can sometimes be chilly, so be forewarned about that. Oops. And the schedule of the day hasn't changed much over the years. The early morning swimmers, sometimes called the albino bears, are always the first ones moving in camp in the morning, heading down to the river for a very quick dip. But everybody else follows really quickly. And I will bet by day 3, you will be totally accustomed to the rhythm of camp. Hiking is the main focus of August camp, but there are other activities, and those will get explained later. We're really fortunate to have well-trained volunteer leaders, and they gather every afternoon. They come back from hiking, they share what they've learned from the day's hike, share information about the trails, and talk over appropriate hikes for the following day. As Sam will talk about this later, but hikes are offered at a variety of levels. And I will say that I think one of the most important elements to remember is that if you really want to enjoy camp, be realistic about your hiking capacity. If you're used to hiking really fast and a ton of miles, well, maybe you want to start off with a hike, but an A hike, but most people start off with B or C hikes and kind of test the speed of their fellow hikers to know what kinds of hikes they can do, because nobody wants to feel like they're on a death march. Camp wouldn't happen without our great crew, and Nick Demore, who you'll meet shortly, is our camp manager, and Julia is the head cook. And the crew is absolutely indispensable. They set up the entire camp, every single tent, every fly in the tent, the kitchen, everything comes under their aegis to maintain them, and they also prepare and serve all the food. So you'll be very well fed while you're at camp. We always have a hearty breakfast. The difference this year, if you're familiar with the lunch tent, we're not having the lunch tent anymore because of the need for a safer food sharing practice. And so we're actually going to be trying to model it on what we learned from Little Lyford last summer, where you will, at dinner, you will be given a bag and you will write on the bag what it is you want in your lunch for the following day. And then the next morning, we will all pick up our lunches at breakfast. And then there's always a great dinner, and there's almost every day a happy hour of some kind. We also usually stop by the local convenience store after hikes to pick up ice and snacks, anything else that you may want for your own personal enjoyment. So you see here people, the usual setup in the dining tent. We're going to be changing things around a little bit to give us more space in the dining tent this summer. But the food will be just as good. And we're going to have, many of you are familiar with the we call them pillies. And we're going to get them, they're getting serviced even more often this summer. We'll have hand washing stations, and outdoor showers are back. So bring your outdoor shower, you lay it out in the grass, and more often than not, I have found that I have to add a little cold water to my outdoor shower so that it doesn't feel scalding. But they're really effective, and we have great portable outdoor showers. So it's the only place where you sometimes have a line at August camp is waiting for a shower, always with good humor. I like this picture because not only is it the campfire, which we have every evening, but if you look in the background, you get a sense of how the camp is set up. And we have a campfire every evening. On Thursday evening, it's the real entertainment evening. When we have Follies, it's the talent show. And we like to think that everybody will participate some way in Follies. The crew always does a routine for Follies. And last summer, when people were able to bring their own instruments, one of the things we found is we had a lot of musical talent. So we've actually added a few instruments to August Camp's collection of instruments, because we know that people can't bring their guitars quite so easily when they're flying. So we'll have some on hand for people to use. And sometimes campfires also include guest speakers, and often after campfire there's singing, and sometimes we try a little Irish step dancing. Transportation is in the camp's rented fleet of vans. This is to and from the Seattle airport, to and from trailheads, and the drivers are all the volunteer drivers, and we have had a lot of people sign up to be volunteer drivers, and we are very, very grateful for that. Being a volunteer driver doesn't mean you have to drive every single day or even necessarily to and from the hike. You can share it with another person who's on the hike, but again, the volunteer drivers are indispensable in getting us where we're going. Safety is a real priority. So if your stomach feels off, if you've scraped your leg while you've been hiking, or you have any other kind of ailment, it's really important to let me know if you're in weeks 1 and 2. And also we want to be really careful about observing COVID safe practices and asking people to arrive at camp in the best possible shape. That means wearing masks while you're traveling, and really being careful about your exposure to other people while you're in the days leading up to camp. And also while we're in camp, we're kind of our own little bubble while we're in camp. And it's really the getting there. And occasionally if we go other places, such as the convenience store where we're interacting with other people, we want to make sure that we are following COVID safe practices so that we don't bring anything back into camp. And while you're in camp, you're asked to refrain from using your cell phone to make and receive calls within the immediate camp area. There's a really long driveway actually leading into camp, and there's a great place out there to be able to make calls. We had some questions about charging the other evening. So just a reminder, bring a charging cable for your phone that you'll be able to use in the van, because that is a really good place to charge up your phone. As much as possible, we really try to follow leave no trace principles in everything we do at camp. We ask people not to leave any trash around your site, especially in your tent, and no food in your tents unless you want some four-legged visitors. We try, and there are also bear boxes available for scented items that you may have with you, and also for any personal food that you may have. So bring a small Tupperware container with you that's labeled, so you're easily able to dig for it in the bear boxes. And also, as much as possible, go for unscented soap and shampoo. And also, the leave no trace practices extend while we're hiking as well. So if you're still wondering, we certainly will answer questions tonight, but if, 2 days from now you are thinking, boy, I don't remember that they covered that in the presentation. First of all, pay really close attention to all the emails that you receive. They're apt to be full of a lot of information, and you want to read the whole thing. Also, the August Camp website contains a ton of information. And if you go to the camp website and you go to the location tab, that tab takes you to information about activities and hikes, as well as the gear list. And the other thing that's really important is if anything changes about your medical status or emergency contact information that we should know in advance of camp, please notify the camp registrar so that we have that information and that it's disseminated to the right people who might need to act on your behalf. And so when it's all over, then we start counting the days until August Camp 2023. And now I am turning it over to Nick.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for that, Margot. Thanks, everybody. And hi to everybody I know and haven't met yet. Hello to my dad, first family member to show up to camp. Really excited to have him here, but excited to have all you, the rest of y'all as well, of course. I'm Nick Demore. He, they pronouns is fine for me. Calling in from Freeport, Maine and Wabanaki territory, and excited to be out in Washington and Skagit Valley with you all, in the tribal lands of the Sauk-Suiattle and the Skagit people in a few short months, really, a few short weeks, I would even say. For me, on the planning end of things, we're full steam ahead, getting vendors together, getting the crew together, making sure flights are assembled and ready to roll for getting out there in July. And things are looking great. We've been at this site. This will be my third time at this site, but I know camp has been in the concrete area a number of times even before I was there. And that's saying something. This is my seventh, I think, summer at camp. So rest assured that there is lots of experience between myself, the few returning crew members, and then the really amazing August Camp Committee that I work underneath in getting this all together for you all. Camp's been running like a well-oiled machine for decades upon decades, and there's a reason I keep coming back to. There's I've had a lot of amazing connections that I've made to people and land alike, and developed some lifelong friends for sure along the way, both on crew but also with campers as well. I keep in touch with a lot of folks throughout the year, and I'm happy to meet some new faces this year. I'm just here to say hello and introduce myself, and just sort of make sure that folks know that there is an adult taking care of the crew members who is a little bit advanced in years of them. I will say the crew is, I'm of course making light of it. The crew is a really lovely bunch of young folks, usually anywhere like college age towards, upper 20s. Generally speaking, lots of outdoor experience behind them, lots of cooking experience, which is a big plus, and lots of, construction experience and things of that nature, things that help the camp really run smoothly. The crew themselves, just to give you an idea of what their summer and what their day looks like, is we all show up about a week and a half before the first week of camp to arrive on site, pull all of our gear, all of our tents, all of our stoves and everything like that. Truck, the 18-wheeler truck bed that all of the gear lives in, assemble it in a convenient and hopefully aesthetically pleasing way, and functional way. We run all of the hospitality services for the 4 weeks that camp operates. So food service, keeping up with maintenance on the site, generally like attending to the needs of campers as they come up. And then we stay for another week to break it all down, pack it away, and get the trailer ready to go off to the next site for the next year's camp. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of hardcore manual labor out in the sun, long hours and things like that, but for a short period of time. And it's really amazing to see this group come together and quickly assert like good team dynamics and all of that good stuff to make it happen. I will say one thing I do want to mention is when things are coming up at camp, you will see the crew mulling around throughout camp. We live in sort of a separate part of the property. We like to give y'all your space, and frankly, you probably all will want some space from us. They stay up a little bit later typically, and things like that. So we live in what we call Crewville or Crew Village, and but when we're on in the kitchen and operating, you'll be meeting us then. We'll be showing up to campfires and all of that good stuff, and please feel free to come and say hello to myself and to crew members when you feel comfortable and ready and able. Though probably the one time I would say is a little bit more difficult to do that is during mealtime. Mealtime is a 3 to 4 hour window for us where we're really focused on getting all of our processes done. So y'all are happy, fed, and watered and nourished throughout camp. So I would say that's, if it's at the beginning of the meal, that might be okay, but in the middle of dinner service and whatnot, crew is very, very busy, with the exception of the servers who will actually be going through the dining tent with y'all and interacting frequently. But if you do have any sort of like concerns that come up throughout the day or throughout the week, the best way to go about getting that need met or getting your feedback heard is to first chat with one of the camp directors, either Margot if it's weeks 1 and 2, or Gina if it's weeks 3 and 4, who I meet with frequently throughout the sessions, to sort of hear feedback and design what, figure out what are the things we need to do. So chat with them first, and they will chat with me. Obviously, if it's an emergency, I am very capable and prepared to deal with that as well. I just do know that I will say, as much as I enjoy interfacing with campers directly, I will say that the best way for information to flow is sort of through that channel. It's just how we've done things for a while, and it's easiest that way to get your needs met, by going first through a director and then towards me. But yeah, otherwise, I just really, I have nothing else really to add at this point, but just I'm really excited to meet all of you and work with all of you and hopefully cultivate a lovely environment for you all. I think this is one of August Camp's more suitable sites in terms of functionality, but also aesthetics, and it's just a really lovely place. So yeah, just excited to be here, excited to see you all. And if anybody has any specific questions for me, please let me know in the chat, and I'll address those as they come up. But I'll pass it back to the committee.
Lenny, you're muted.
Let's try that again. Thanks, Nick. And we would like to turn things over now to our head hike leader, Sam Jamke, to tell us about the hiking program at camp this year. Sam?
Okay, let me get started. Okay, in case you haven't sensed it already, the concrete site is absolutely one of our favorites that we've gone to a number of times. It is a fantastic site and very well suited to camp. Okay, the map 223 of the trip is about where we would be. But this gives you a better idea. You'll see here, we have the Cascades, North Cascades Highway Route 20. This is the location of camp right on the river, as Margot said, and concrete itself is a little bit off the slide to the left. And we are going to be hiking all over this area and further down off there. So it's a fantastic area for hiking. Also, as she mentioned, Cascadian Farms is right down the road, and you will stop there most days after your hike, and you'll see practically everybody from camp will be sitting there eating ice cream or munching on fresh berries. And as everybody said, the sights are gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, breathtaking. So we do have hikes at every level each day. We do hike as a group, then usually 12 of us, including your leader. The leaders are well-trained AMC volunteers with lots of hiking experience, and we're all certified in wilderness first aid and CPR. It's required that we be current in that in order to enjoy these beautiful scenes. Each night, each evening, we have a campfire. The hike leaders will describe the hikes they're going to lead, including any relevant stuff, like if you're not into exposure, edges, they'll tell you that, or if there's going to be stream crossings or an opportunity to swim, they'll tell you what the highlights of each particular hike are. And it's up to you whether you want to choose a harder hike, which we call an A hike, a more moderate hike, or an easier C hike. I should say that even if you pick a C hike, you'll probably count on being out most of the day out of camp. We may combine a couple of easy hikes to make for a full day's outing, or we might decide to do something, do a little sightseeing, etc. But you will be out of camp most of the day, every day. We can't promise you to get your first choice for every hike because we do have to limit the size of the groups, but there'll be enough great hikes for everybody to be happy. And we do often offer a very popular hike multiple times in a week. If there's a lot of people that want to do a particular hike, we can offer it more than once. You should only choose the hikes that you're physically comfortable doing. Where camp is at a fairly low elevation, we'll probably be going at 5,000, 7,000 feet. So the elevation isn't going to be too bad. And there's often other activities besides hiking, and I'll talk about those in a bit. The trails out west are much nicer than the trails back east. If you can hike in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, you can hike just about anywhere. And this gives you an idea of what the trails can be like. They're less steep, they're wider, they're smoother, lots of switchbacks. You'll probably be able to do more miles than you're used to doing back east. The hikes leave after breakfast each day, and they always aim to return in time for dinner, barring some traffic problems or whatever. And almost always a time for happy hour celebrations, or taking a sun shower, or going for a swim. Somebody asked about the Skagit River. Out from camp, I wouldn't say it's swimmable. You're not going to do laps, but you can get nice cooled off and wet. But it's not 6 or 8 feet deep at that location. Be prepared. Don't let the hikes at August Camp be your first hikes unless you're going to be doing all really easy hikes. So be prepared for it. Pack your pack the night before with everything you need except your lunch that you pick up in the morning at breakfast. You want to have rain gear, even if it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. You want to have rain gear, wind gear, and plenty of water, 2 or 3 liters generally, or your hydration system. If you do use a hydration system, I strongly urge you to also bring a bottle as backup, just in case. And although the leaders carry group first aid kits, which are extensive, you should carry what your experience has told you you need, whether it's an EpiPen or blister bandaging. You should carry your own personal first aid kit. Now, we mentioned that there's sometimes other activities. We're primarily a hiking camp, but there are sometimes some really nice things in each given area that you can do. And you'll get information by email about the activities, but I'd just like to give you an overview of the kinds of things we're thinking of doing. And you should see these also online late this month or in early June. Sea kayaking has always been popular to do the San Juan Islands from Anacortes. This will require you to sign up in advance, contact the leader each week, and be given information on how to sign up with the outfitter. And there will be added costs. The days will vary because of tidal consideration. So it's not going to be the same day each week. There'll be a service project every Thursday that Paula has arranged, working with the Park Service and their native plant nurseries in the morning, and then a citizen science project in the afternoon involving a study of dragonflies. You'll be able to sign up for this at camp. There's also going to be an educational or cultural excursion to a sculpture garden in Bellingham and a nearby arboretum. And this would be, I'd say, a sea adventure. There will be some hiking involved, but there'll be a lot of cultural aspects to it. And then weeks 3 and 4 have a car camp, an overnight car camp to the Mount Baker area, which is too far to drive for day hikes from camp. So weeks 1 and 2 doesn't generally offer this, and the reason being either there's not been a lot of interest in leaving camp overnight for 2 days, but also because their snow cover is pretty significant in weeks 1 and 2, and in that area it can be a problem when you're doing an overnight. Somebody asked me, this is just some sea kayaking from a past year. Somebody asked in the chat who the leaders are. I can speak to who the leaders are for weeks 1 and 2. Myself, of course, this year I'm not going to be at camp week 2. So Lenny Steinmetz and Mark Kern will be sharing the head hike leader responsibilities for week 2. I'm in the process of moving to Maryland, and my life is sort of in chaos at the moment. So I will have to only be there for 1 week and setup week. The leaders for weeks 1 and 2 include some new people as well as people that have been doing it for years. And we have 2 of them on the call. Beth Zimmer is on the call and John Lisker. I believe those are the only 2 leaders. And Paula, of course, Paula often does either the service trip or some biking. And we don't know yet about the biking, but she can.
And Ava is also on the call.
What was that?
Ava is also on the call.
Oh, she is. I didn't see her. Okay, Ava Doss. Okay, so we have Ava Doss, John Lisker, Marilyn Solomidis. She's the lady who's from Washington State. Beth, I mentioned, Tom Grasso, Barbara Bloomberg, John Rogers is leading for 2 weeks. John Rowan, Claudine Koss is a longtime camper, and she'll be leading for the first time this year. Lenny, of course, is leading. Mark Kern is leading both weeks. Let's see, who did I forget? Anybody? No, I think that's it. That's the lineup for weeks 1 and 2. I can't tell you who's leading for weeks 3 and 4 off the top of my head. It would be an incomplete list at best. So, but we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have afterwards. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to our transportation coordinator, Paula Burton. Okay.
Okay, so I'll be at the airport on both Saturdays for week 1 and 2. It's very important that you read where we meet. I believe it was it's all on the website, and you will probably be getting more information on the email. We're usually hiding underneath an elevator. Last time we were there, and I don't know when that was, a while ago, there were also a lot of people in the area because of the big ships and ferries were meeting there. So do take a look. If you can't find us, text or call. You do have my phone number that's in your information. We'd like you to be there between 10 and 2. I realize there's been a ton of flight changes. But so if your flight changes, please, please let us know, because we like to keep track of who's coming in. So what happens is you come in, you check in with us, and then we find drivers. And then each driver, as we fill up the van, you take off for camp. The drive to camp is really one of the easier ones, I find. And I know people are tired, but if you are signed up for a driver, we do need you to do that. And then on the return during the week, we'll send around, you will let me know when you plan to leave or how you plan to leave. We'll divvy up the vans. All the vans have to be out of camp by 8:30. So even if your flight is 11 o'clock at night, you have to leave camp by 8:30, because we have a turnover period and the crew needs to clean out the tents and so forth. And that's leaving. And then drivers, it looks like I just looked at the latest list, looks like we have a fair number of drivers, which is great, because the more drivers we have, that's the less amount each person has to drive. We try to share that. You know, of course, you know, if you're going on a hike, talk to your leaders about the driving. If for some reason you really feel super tired or you're not up for driving, that's okay. We'll try to work something out. We'd rather have, you know, alert drivers rather than ones that are feeling like they just can't drive. It can be a little overwhelming. You just get off, you know, when you, particularly that first day or two, you know, you get off the plane and it's a lot of getting organized and all this stuff, but we do appreciate our drivers very much. And that's basically it for transportation. So we thank all our drivers. You help really make the camp go around, because without you, we would be in a bit of a quandary. So, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. And again, if you have any flight changes, please, please, please update them. All right. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to, who am I turning it over to?
Mary Innes.
Mary is going to talk to you about COVID procedures.
Let me just, let's see, share. And share. Oop, that's not right. Let's try this one. All right. Can you see this?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can.
Excellent.
see
Thank
it.
you. All right. So I'm a longtime leader in weeks 3 and 4, longtime committee member, and I'm the lead of the COVID task force for the committee. So I get to do this presentation. So our mission, we're going to have a safe and healthy August camp. And looking back to last summer, we were in the Northwoods, Little Lyford, Maine. We followed, as we are still, the AMC, the state, so it was Maine last summer, it'll be Washington this summer, federal CDC guidelines. And we had a wonderful camp last summer, COVID-free. Staff and campers were great. We did it at 65% occupancy and Saturday to Friday weeks. And transportation was always in personal vehicles. This year, the good news about this year is once we're at camp, we're mostly outdoors and we have plenty of space, and the usual transmission of COVID occurs indoors in crowded spaces. Our goal is, with the help of everyone, we will have a healthy, enjoyable, and COVID-free season in the North Cascades. Our challenge is we are a field camp. We last 6 weeks, not just the 1 week that you're coming, because germs stick around, but we have 4 one-week sessions, 7 days each, and a setup week and a half and a takedown week. Our occupancy is 100% this time, which is 64 people each week. And people are traveling to camp mostly by air or public transportation of some sort. and travel during camp is in shared rental minivans. We're following the COVID guidelines and the regulations from AMC, State of Washington, federal CDC, which is National Park and Forest. We know that we're all arriving either fully vaccinated or having provided a negative COVID test result from PCR test taken within 72 hours of the start of camp. We are hoping that everyone, so that we'll all have a wonderful camp, everyone will do their best to arrive in good health, taking care to utilize protective practices in the 10 days preceding camp, including travel. At camp, we have our tools of hand washing, masks, social distancing, and these are for use as needed. And should there be postings, should regulations change, as we saw last summer, they changed at the end of week 2, for weeks 3 and 4. So we're very good at posting if the regulations for AMC, state or federal change, okay? Should anyone become ill while at camp, that person will talk with the director, and the director and that person will decide if this is a viral illness. And if so, that person needs to leave camp until symptoms have resolved and there's a negative COVID test. And the CDC guidance at this point means you're really leaving camp. You're not coming back because you need to be free from symptoms and have another COVID test. We don't have an infirmary. We don't have a capacity to have a separate bathroom, separate dishes and food, separate bedding. There is a motel down the road that has been used when people have been ill in the past. Our food service providers are the crew, and they are all certified in the food safety program of the Washington State Department of Health. Our seating during meals has been in the past pretty much hip to hip under one large dining tarp in 2 long rows of tables. So what we'll do this time is we'll continue to have the tables under the tarp, but we'll also have some additional tables so that there'll be a little bit more room between people. Lunch, you've already heard, the sandwiches will be made by the crew, and there will be some assembly by individuals, but probably of already bagged vegetables or cookies or single servings of fruit. There will be plenty of hand washing stations at the porta potty, at the entrance to the dining area, and spread around camp. Please use these frequently. Travel to and from activities is via our rental minivans. Any of you who've been with us before, you've already seen that when we're on dirt roads, the windows have to be closed, the air is on recirculate. So that is really an indoor space. And while use of masks nationally right now are not required, we're asking that people be mask friendly. And mask friendly means using masks as needed to keep the individual and the group at the time as safe as possible. So our takeaways are to have a wonderful, safe, and healthy stay. Be as careful as you can tolerate being in the 10 days prior to camp, including travel. During camp, our tools to fight COVID are fresh air, social distance, hand washing, and masks. The only indoor space is in the vans, or if you go into the store at the gas station to get snacks. The August Camp Committee continues to monitor the COVID guidelines, and we're continuing to communicate via our website and email blasts. If anyone needs, the website address is augustcamp.org, and then you go to location, and then under location, go to COVID. There are still some email blasts scheduled to come out. There will be one for certain addressing safety issues before camp starts in late June, early July. So here's to a safe and healthy camp. And now, Lenny, questions and answers?
Yes, thank you, Mary. I have seen a lot of the questions that have been coming in get answered in the chat. as we go. If some of you are not familiar with using the chat screen, if you look on the bottom of your screen, you should see a little button and you can scroll through all of the chat questions that have already happened and been answered. A couple of things that I just saw coming in that I don't think have been answered. First of all, is there going to be gluten-free bread available at camp? Nick's still on here.
Sorry about that, y'all. I was just trying to chime in by typing it out, but I'll chat here. For all meals, crew will be preparing gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, and vegetarian options. From time to time, that vegetarian option will also be vegan, but vegan is often a tougher thing for us to provide for, just given the limited nature of our suppliers and where we pool our resources from. So I would say you should feel comfortable and confident that there will be food available for you for all meals. But if there is any concerns about that, or if you have a little bit more specific dietary needs or concerns, it might be a good idea to have certain, like your own preferred snacks on hand or things of that nature. And if you have any particular concerns when you do arrive at camp, please come introduce yourself to myself and our chef, Julia, and we will do our best to accommodate that. And I'll say we'll also be really honest about what we can and can't accommodate, but obviously be doing that with an eye towards whatever we can do to make things work for you, whether that's holding a space in the refrigerator for your needs or things like that. We're happy to chat through that.
Okay, thanks, Nick. I see another question coming in here. Will there be testing kits available at camp this year? I assume we're talking COVID tests, and yes, we do have those, and we will be using those as needed, and hopefully they won't be needed, but yeah, we do have them. Other questions flowing in, which I see talk about mats and things. I personally just use a plastic drop cloth on the floor of the tent, but it depends on how fancy you want to get. Weight is, of course, an issue as you're traveling. Anybody see other questions coming in that we should be?
Somebody asked about what level sleeping bag. I always bring my 15-degree bag, figuring if it's warm, I can at least open it up or lay on top of it. But if you have a bag that isn't warm enough and we have cold nights, you'll be pretty miserable. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Other questions that people have? If you want to unmute and ask, if you're not good at getting to the chat, you're welcome to unmute and ask.
Someone asked if people will be wearing masks in the vans. Well, just like Mary said, the vans are going to be mask friendly. We're not, according to the regulations, that we follow all the CDC regulations, it's not required. I think it's a good idea, and we'll try to, set a good example for that. And if somebody is wanting everyone else to wear a mask in the van, then that's what will happen. That is our only, that is our transportation to the hikes and back and forth from the airport. And we want to keep everyone safe and well, so.
Okay, and just saw a question about a fridge, Nick mentioning the fridge. Yeah, we have a refrigerator truck where the crew stores food. It's not an electric refrigerator. It's run by a generator or whatever. So electricity on site, no. Other questions coming in?
So if we need to charge our phones, will that be done in the cars when we're going back and forth to the hikes?
We should have both the, most people charge them in the vans because it's easier, but we also should have a power strip set up somewhere running off a battery that you can charge if you need to charge when you get back to camp. There will be some room for people to do that as well.
Lenny, can I share my screen and show people the website where they can find certain things? Some people are having trouble finding certain things.
Sounds good. Go for it, Sam. And by the way, Sam had mentioned that the activities list is not, or will be up later this month. A basic version of this special activities list is already listed on the website under activity hiking. Where is it? I'll just find
Yeah,
the,
okay.
yeah.
Can everybody see my screen? This is the home screen for augustcamp.org. Then you have an apply button, an about button, and under location, you will see transportation, hike list, activities, equipment list, COVID cancellation policy, and COVID plan. So that you should be able to find everything you need to know right there. And then there's a history tab and some FAQs, which answer a lot of questions. Anybody have questions about the website while we're looking at it?
And I see it does look different, of course, if you're looking at it on a phone or, but where I had found the activities was under menu, location. Then there was a hike list and activities and things all listed
Yes,
under
yeah,
that
you have to
location
click
tab.
on the phone, you have to click on menu up at the top, yes.
Mhm.
And there will be some specific information, and that may be true with the transportation, that's going to be posted. Isn't up there yet, but will be posted in a matter of weeks. So really come back and check it often.
Hey, any other questions? Good. Well,
How many
then,
participants? How many participants will we have during our sessions?
What was the question?
How many participants in each camp session?
64.
Oh, 64, there's 64 campers, including the leaders each week. And there's usually about 7 leaders each week.
Okay.
I have a question. How does the distribution of people to tents work? Like, how does that all go down? Is there a big land grab, or people have them assigned, or how does it work?
Some people have roommate preferences. They come with somebody, so they share a tent. There's 2 people to a tent. Other people come solo, and we pair them up with a same gender roommate. And generally there haven't been personality problems, so that's not an issue. Although you could always, if there were, you could take it up with the camp director and they could see if they could resolve it. But yeah, if you have a preference, you can put that on your application. But otherwise, you'll be the first person that gets there might pick a tent, and then somebody else will decide to room with them. You know, it's pretty flexible.
Okay. So if you find yourself after you get away from this session, you have some other questions that you would like to have answered, I just put my email address in the chat, and you're welcome to contact me. And if I don't have the answer for you, I will get in touch with someone who does. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is, will there be any extra tents available? Somebody who camped at Concrete in the past said that it's nice to have an extra tent, and my son lives out there and I was hoping to get one from him, but at this point, he's going to be away when I arrive. So I just wondered if you have any extra tents, like to keep your tent organized so you can put your things in one, and, smaller
No,
tent.
these are big tents, Donna. They're
Okay.
8 by 10, 9 by 12 tents. So we
Okay,
can't have multiple tents for each person.
okay. I was just told that by a prior camper, so that's why I
Yeah,
asked.
some people will bring a small backpacking tent, especially if they're going to go on the week 3-4 car camp, because they do need
Okay.
a backpacking tent for that. So people have
Okay.
brought a small tent, but obviously everybody can't do it. There wouldn't be room for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. So I see a question about the recording in the chat, that the recording of this Zoom session and of the one that took place on Thursday night will both be posted on the August Camp website sometime in the next week. So you should be able to check back with those, look at those. The chat sessions will be included in the video recording, so you can look at things again and see if, you want to review any topics. But I also, as I said, put my email address in the chat, steinmetz.lenny@gmail.com. So you can reach out to me if you have, questions that weren't answered in any of these places. We'd like to, at this point, to thank you all for taking the time to be with us here today. And hope that you have a safe journey out to camp and that we have a great time out in the North Cascades this summer. Thanks for being with us. See you next summer.
Thank you.